We back, baby. Welcome to the Dreadful Podcast, the reboot of the Dreadful Podcast. If you're not familiar with it, we released 5 episodes of a podcast last year, or actually 2 years ago in 2021. But now we got this beautiful studio. We are broadcasting from the Scott Vicknair Injury Lawyer Studio on Poydras Street, downtown New Orleans. Thank you, Scott Vicknair, for letting us use the studio. And Louisiana has the absolute worst drivers in this godforsaken country. Now, the thing is that this episode is going to be released to the public. Everybody's going to get to see this on YouTube, on the YouTubes. But we're not going to finish on YouTube. The last segment is going to be on Patreon, and we're going to handle that for the next few episodes. We'll release the last hour or 30 minutes or however long I can talk on Patreon. We'll talk more about the history, tell some horror stories, answer a bunch of questions, say what we've been doing, all this kind of stuff. But for right now, we on YouTube, baby. Welcome. Dreadful Podcast, Episode 1. So, I don't even really know how to start, except I was driving this morning to work, and about 5 times I saw potential accidents. Now, I'm not talking fender benders. I'm not talking, oh, sorry, let's trade insurance information and then call Scott Vicknair to help with my injuries. No, I'm talking about cataclysmic multi-car pileups this would have caused. People are zooming in and out of traffic. Like, they don't care. Now, I did hear a story. A friend of mine, I wouldn't even say a friend, more like an acquaintance of mine, told me that her friend didn't get a driver's license here. She went the majority of her life without a driver's license in Louisiana. And then she went to the DMV to hand in her ID. And she's like in her 30s, just hands them my ID. And they give her a driver's license. No test, nothing. No written test, no driving test, nothing. Just went in raw. Went into the DMV raw, got the raw driver's license, and now she's on the road. Now, look, I'm not saying that she's a bad driver. Sure, let's say she's an exception to the rule, okay? We'll say she's an exception to the rule, this person who have no idea who she is. But if that's happening one instance, you can bet it's happening a lot. And judging by the way people are driving, it's happening more frequently than I thought. I'm talking not only completely disregard the fact that a lot of people drive slow in the left lane. If you're watching this and you drive slow in the left lane, I'm not a fan of you. And you're probably not going to be a fan of me because I'm going to be honking the horn when I'm passing you up. I'm going to be flashing my lights. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. And some people are like, oh, Kyle, you think you're so important that you got to. No. Do you think you're important that you could just hold up traffic? Because that's what you're doing. This is not a personal attack, except it 100% is. Do not go in the left lane and just park your big behind right there. People got places to be. You might just like to cruise, and if that's the case, go in the far left lane. Go in the middle lane. Leave that left lane open. Leave it open, because that's where people like me and a lot of other people like to just go. You know, if the speed limit's 65, I'm going 70. If there's a police officer watching or a special state trooper, I'm sorry you didn't hear me say that, but I'll go at least 70, you know, and you got to go. The speed limit is there as a guideline, much like a driver's license is a guideline these days. You apparently don't have to have one to know how to drive. It is what it is. I'm not going to stop flashing my lights at people in the left lane. Yeah, I might get shot. Yeah, I might get run over on the side of the road. But I'll die a martyr if that's the case. I will die on this hill. I swear to you. I don't get angered by much. However, the more y'all watch this podcast and the more episodes we release, you'll come to find out that I actually do get annoyed very easily with a lot of stuff that's going on here, especially in the world of politics, which we will get to on the Patreon, because I have a lot of things to say. And now if you're worried, I'm sorry, not worried. You're probably going to be worried. But if you want to check out the Patreon, go to patreon.com/Louisiana Dread and sign up. It's a monthly subscription, $10. You get all kinds of footage. Yo, we have put, and when I say we, I say me and my team, Michael Malley, Samantha Rohr, Daniel Sheridan, Emily Reswithal. So we have a lot of people doing stuff, creating all of this Louisiana content, telling you all this history, and we're not going to release all of it to the public because we are going towards a goal, and our goal is to create the anthology series of Louisiana Dread. And I think it'd be fitting in this first episode, after I completely belittled and degraded, I'd say, the vast majority of the people in this state because they drive in the left lane very slow and they don't know how to drive. The best thing to do now is to plug what we're doing. So the whole thing with Louisiana Dread is I wrote 10 episodes of a horror anthology series, all based on Louisiana culture, Louisiana history, and Louisiana folklore. I was watching The Twilight Zone with my ex-girlfriend at the time. She was from France. She had never seen The Twilight Zone, so she was glued to this television screen. And I'm in Los Angeles at this time. This is 2017. It's before my dad got sick, and I was just glued to this screen too, because it was, I believe the episode, it was Shot an Arrow into the Sky. And it's about these astronauts. They crash land their rocket on the moon. And that's one of the beautiful things about Twilight Zone, because you can really see the anxiety and the horrors that people were facing back then. It was a lot of fascism and communism that was plaguing the American society at the time. So a lot of these episodes have a lot to do with Hitler, or I probably can't say that name on YouTube. I'll get to whoever, bleep that out if I can't. But a lot of the fascist regimes and all that kind of stuff, and then the communism scare and all that kind of stuff coming up. But also, we hadn't even landed on the moon when The Twilight Zone came out. So it was a lot of what is on the moon. Are there aliens? Are there, creatures that we never even thought of? Are there good drivers? All this kind of stuff. So people were really scared of what they would find on the moon. And a lot of the horror episodes reflect that anxiety of the general American population to go to the moon. So these astronauts crash land on the moon, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but crazy tracas happens. They start, and I think the Twilight Zone, it never ends well. It's never a happy ending. And that's what Louisiana Dread is. So I was looking at this episode, and I immediately thought of about 10 topics right off the top of my head that we can easily make these short anthology series on. Rougarou, The Axeman, Bootlegging, Mardi Gras, the list goes on and on. Marie Laveau, all this kind of stuff. You can basically pick a topic and you write a 22-minute short horror and you have an anthology series. And that's what I did. I wrote, the first episode is the Rougarou. Naturally, it's our big cryptid, our big creature feature. In fact, Cleo right here knows firsthand what it's like to be in contact with a Rougarou. In fact, Cleo, come see. She's a little shy. She's tall too. But the premise of each of these will vary. They're not all going to be creature features, although we do have a lot of cryptids. We got the lutin, we got the litesh. You look on Louisiana Dread on YouTube, that's youtube.com/@Louisiana Dread. You'll see all the creatures we got. No shortage of creatures. And I'm still doing episodes. We still traveling all over the state, and we're still doing them. So there's way, way more stories to tell. And that's why I wanted to start this anthology, because I want people all over the world, and especially if you're listening to this right now. We have some people in India that actually love Louisiana Dread. Shout out, India. I love you. But these people do not know much about our culture. And that's through no fault of their own. In fact, a lot of places that push our culture, a lot of mediums that kind of push our culture do it wrong. They do it injustice because they don't know what they're talking about. A lot of these big producers and these big writers and directors stuff, they're not from here. They don't know about our culture. They don't know what it means to be a Cajun. They don't know what it means to be a Creole. They don't know what it's like to grow up in South Louisiana and to have our culture. And that alone is so important when you're telling stories about our culture and who we are. My fight will never end to show the world our culture and who we are and our stories, our folklore, to keep them immortalized correctly, accurately, and not do any type of gross misrepresentation. And that's what this series aims to do. It aims to be a beacon of cultural significance towards the state of Louisiana. It's my love letter to this state that made me, molded me to the person that I am. And it's for the people of this state, my people in Louisiana. This is for you. So you can sit down and you can enjoy these videos or you can enjoy the horror stories and be like, oh, yeah, I know my mom and my papa used to tell me about the Rougarou or the Honey Island swamp monster. They say, oh, don't go out too late. You know, they're going to pinch your toes or they're going to eat you and all that kind of stuff. The Axeman, all the lore. So essentially, I wrote these episodes to educate people because I know, and I'm guilty of this too, y'all. I learn a lot by watching film and television and documentaries. Now, these mediums, the film medium, can get to a lot of people, and it can educate subconsciously. People watch something and they take it like, oh, God, that's probably true. Blah, 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 blah. So you want to kind of get that feeling across with these episodes. So you have the Rougarou, the Ulysses Deep Water, which is about the oil rigs off the coast. Wild stuff in that one. The Axeman, classic. The Lake, which is about a lake monster in Lake Pontchartrain. The Epidemic. I wrote that before COVID-19, so you can imagine my astonishment and my horror when it came true. The Family, which is about a family trapped in a house in Lake Charles during a storm. I wrote it maybe 3 months before Hurricane Laura hit. I'm sorry. You have, the Romeo Hooks. That one's wild. If y'all know anything about the Romeo Hooks, go watch the Louisiana Dread episode on that to learn more about it. Very gruesome, very horrific. The Addiction App, which is probably my favorite one. It involves a hurricane and two ladies, one dealing with addiction, which I have some of that, in my life that kind of resonates in this. So a lot of these stories come from the tales that I heard growing up, and then a lot of the research that I did too. And then there's two more. Missing them on the top of my head. Oh, the Sawyer Brothers. That's the bootlegging one. Two brothers are bootleggers and stuff like that. Really cool. And there's one, the Grunch. My people in New Orleans East, you heard about the Grunch. People along the river, you heard about the Grunch monster. That's a really good one too. So I wrote those 10. I vary between 22 minutes to an hour in length. And I realized after I wrote them that no one really knows what each of these stories pertains to. They don't know the lore. They don't know the history behind it. So I started the Louisiana Dread series, which probably brings you here to this podcast. All on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. All of you people that follow me, I love you so much. Y'all are the best. My Patreon people, y'all are the best. Y'all going to get the treat as soon as this one ends. But the social media helps me tell these quick history stories, these quick tales to kind of get an appetizer out to you before you enjoy the main course. And that's what all of this is for. We're getting donations. We're getting the Patreon monthly subscribers to contribute, and we saving that to produce this series. Enough to kind of pitch it to these big production companies so we can actually make this and make it with myself as the head creative so that there is no bastardization of our culture anymore. It's gone on for too long. Well over 100 years, Americans have bastardized the Louisiana culture. No longer, not under my watch. All right, what is going on in the news? We're recording this at the end of June. The Titan thing blew up, imploded, whatever. Those billionaires died. Everybody's in the whole country's obviously sad. Could you imagine if those people came up and they survived and they're like, oh, it's so nice to breathe a fresh breath of air after being locked in this tin can 2 miles down and without seeing the Titanic. I thought we were going to die. The whole country must have been worried. They must have been just devastated that we were gone, and they wanted us to come back. They wanted us to come back because they miss us. And then they get on social media and they see everybody roasting the absolute hell out of these people. That must have been something crazy if that would really happen. But again, God rest their souls, R.I.P. Also, bigger news, LSU, baby, go Tigers, 7-time national champions. Oh, yeah. They did it. We always knew they could do it. LSU women absolutely killed it in basketball earlier this year. We got 2 national titles. We going for a 4th. No. Yeah, we'll go for 4. I don't know how many sports they got at LSU. Probably like 1,000. But we going for football. Football's the next one. We're going to go big, baby. We're going to go big. And then we're going to get men's basketball back in the picture. It's going to be great for LSU. It's going to be great for LSU. And go Tigers. That's all I got to say about that. What else is going on? Virgin Galactic. Richard Branson. Sending people straight up to the stars. They're doing absolutely bonkers stuff, y'all. They're sending people to space. Tourism. Space tourism. This is the new thing. By the time I'm an old pawpaw, people are just going to be chilling up on Mars. They're going to be chilling up on the moon. They're going to be hanging out in the stratosphere, sipping on some space martinis, and just living the high life, literally. Now, I did hear, I believe it was Neil deGrasse Tyson did a podcast that said the amount of knowledge that we have of the ocean is 5%. We've only looked at 5% of the ocean. And it was a big topic, obviously, with the tin can that imploded. So it was all over the news. But take what we know of the ocean and let's compare that to what we know of the cosmos, what we know of space. And the amount that we actually know about space is insanely small. Insanely small. So if you shrink space to fit into the amount of water they have in the ocean on Earth, if you just shrink the entirety of the cosmos to the size of the ocean, the amount we know about the space, the time, the continuum, everything fits in a Dixie cup. Wild. We still got so much to do. What's everybody doing? Explore. Go have fun. Go explore. I guess we got to wait for Elon or I was about to say Eddie Guerrero. I don't know why I even thought about that. Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, Elon, those 3. How about NASA? Think they could get their behinds up there, explore a little bit more? We haven't been to the moon since the 70s. We should have a Starbucks up there by now. At least a Cafe Du Monde. Come on. It's there. We could see it from Earth. We should be up there. We should have been up there a long time ago. I don't know what was going on. I don't know why they defunded NASA. I didn't look any of that up. I didn't prepare for this podcast, obviously. But there's so much work to be done. Just like with Louisiana culture preservation, there's so much work to be done in terms of research, filming, editing, writing, everything. We're getting to it little by little, y'all. Little by little. Keep supporting, keep the faith. The Russian coup. Wagner, or is it Wagner? Wagner. Oh boy, Putin felt the heat. He felt the heat when his boys are coming up to Moscow. And I saw on the map they had Buku blockades. on the road from Rostov to Moscow. That was pretty wild to see. But in terms of a coup, it was pretty weak. It was pretty weak. Almost on par with the January 6th stuff. It's a weak coup. It's boring. The biggest coup we've ever seen was when our president got shot in the head. When JFK got shot, that was, if you think for 1 second that the JFK assassination was anything less than a coup, I can't help you. I can't help you. It was what it was. But Putin's feeling the heat. Things are going on. This war has been going on for how many months? Over a year now. We've given $70 billion, trillion, gazillion dollars to Ukraine. God bless them. But hey, I walked over like 10 homeless people on my way over here this morning. How about we help them? It is 1 billion degrees outside. The sun is right outside the door. People are melting. Straight up. The news guy was like, hey, so do me a favor. Could y'all not walk y'all dogs on the concrete? Could y'all not walk animals on the concrete because the concrete is 154 degrees? Walk them in the grass. Walk them in the grass? What's going on? I've never seen that stat. Now, mind you, I don't watch the weather every day. I probably should, but I don't. I just happen to scroll upon it, and sure enough, 154 degrees on the concrete, on the asphalt. I don't understand why we can't help these people on the side of the road. That's all I'm saying. There's so many people here that need help. We have the resources. How much money does just the city of New Orleans bring in tourism every year? Beaucoup. And yet we can't help our own citizens, especially our veterans. Y'all, they defend us. Everybody loves the troops. Everybody loves the wars, all this kind of stuff. But when it comes time to help them out back at home, everybody seems quiet. They don't really care, which to me is disgusting. It's gross. We should be helping these veterans come back and helping them with all the trauma, that stuff that they experienced overseas. And they should be living like shahs, like they do in Iran and stuff like that, you know. And I said this before too, especially after Hurricane Ida. Hold on. I'm going to talk about Ida much later in other podcasts, but I will say this. The people of Bayou Lafourche and Terrebonne Parish should be living like kings and queens with the amount of oil that runs underneath their legs. Yet, there's people still living in FEMA campers. There was still people living in tents as late as 1.5 years after the storm. Yes. All my people from outside of Louisiana, yes. I know you didn't hear about it. I know the news coverage didn't tell you about that because it's not sexy. It's not sexy. It's not the Met Gala. That's why you didn't hear about it. But no, I know people personally that were staying in tents after a Category 5 hurricane. Yes, it said it was Category 4 for the insurance. Sure. That was not a Category 4 hurricane. Was not. These insurance companies don't have to fork out as much money if it is a Category 4 storm. If it is a Category 5, they don't have to shell out as much money. So many insurance companies went bankrupt because they just couldn't shell out the money. I'm going all over in this podcast, y'all. I'm just hitting a bunch of topics. I probably should just stay in one lane, but you know what happens when you stay in one lane? You ruin it for everyone. You make everyone slow and late to their jobs. Anyway, enough with the ranting. You're going to probably get this a lot. My Patreon people, you'll probably get a lot more of it because you're actually paying to hear it. So you'll get all of it. In fact, the Patreon podcast is rated R because I'm holding back right now. Believe it or not, I'm holding back. I swear a lot. All my friends know I curse a lot. My family knows I curse a lot. And I think I'm doing a pretty darn good job right now of not swearing because I don't want to get pulled off of YouTube before the first episode even hits the airwaves. And, eventually we'll just do 2 separate shows. The Dreadful Podcast and then the Dreadful Podcast After Dark. And, the way this is going to roll out, I don't even know how long I've been talking. Really ranting. I wouldn't even say talking. I'm just saying what's in the chest. It's in my chest. But we'll have this first part on YouTube, and then the second half I'll continue on Patreon. So if you want to hear the next set of rants that I'm going to go off on, go check out the Patreon. $10 a month, that ain't much. It's like Netflix, except this is way better than Netflix. You're not going to get all that. It's not like Cheer. You want to watch Cheer? Go on Netflix. Watch Cheer. I'm sure that's going to be fascinating. Fascinating. Watching people flip. Watch wrestling. Way cooler. But yeah, we also have a newsletter coming out. Monthly newsletter. We've been doing it for a little while. We have merch. We have all the stuff that you can really think about. Go check it out. Every donation, everything you buy, everything you subscribe to, it directly supports authentic Louisiana Creole and Cajun content. We make this from scratch. We do the research. We write the episodes, and we make it just for you, for your family, and a lot of cool things are coming, y'all. So stay tuned. Because we're going to try coming to you every week or every other week. I don't know. Whenever I could get my behind in here. But we're going to have a lot of cool guests, y'all. People who are experts in their field all over the place. We'll handle everything from clothing to archaeology to history to weather, meteorology. We'll do probably garbage truck drivers, all kind of stuff. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff on the podcast. So tell your ma, tell your pa in Arkansas to follow us. Louisiana Dread, baby. The Dreadful Podcast. And I'd also like to thank Scott Vicknair, personal injury attorneys, and really everybody involved with Scott Vicknair for letting us use this beautiful studio. And come on, baby. We going next week. Tune in. Goodbye.